Hey church, it's Bible study time. Sorry, I'm a minute late. Oh, I had time early and I get on Facebook and I'm watching all the cool things you're doing, and before I know it, it's done. I want to talk to you about that we are almost done with Judges. That's crazy, isn't it? We have, literally next week, we will do 3 chapters. We will do Judges 19, 20, and 21, because otherwise we would have just one. So literally this is the second to last week of Judges. We've walked through the whole thing, this Bible study. And if you have not had a chance to watch any of them, they are back there, or just message me below and I can give you links to all the others as we kind of go through Judges. So next week I'll tell you where we're going after. We do a Bible study every week, Tuesday at 3:30, kind of to center ourselves on what really matters. There's so much going on in the world right now, and I know it's hard to find your center. Some of you are isolated at home, others are going to work and it's a stress, others just going to the grocery store is a stress. So we try to find a way that we can kind of reconnect to the timeless stories in the Bible. Well, this week is 17 and 18 of Judges, and it's kind of a strange story. It's about a man named Micah. Now, I want to clarify right from the beginning, this is not the Micah that has his own book in the Bible. That is a prophet. This is not. This is just a guy. So think of it like the name John or Mary or Tiffany. There's lots of them with that name, right? So this is a guy whose name is Micah. And he's kind of a representative for those who had fallen away. And something we kind of see in our world today, right? That when things get chaotic or things get stressful, and you move further away from your center, you begin to kind of redefine what your center looks like. And this is what happened to the Israelite people. They had stepped away from God. And so Micah is actually going to be creating his own faith. I know that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But he does. In this story, he makes his own faith up. And it all starts on Micah 17, verse 1. There was a man named Micah who lived in the hill country of Ephraim. Ephraim is a kind of a neat word. It's actually also my nephew Luke Alexander Ephraim's name. It's a place. And so he was from this place, he was from the hills, and one day he said to his mother, "I heard you place a curse on the person who stole 1,100 pieces of silver from you. Well, I have the money, I was the one who took it." So right at the beginning we see that Micah has been a thief in the past, but that he is repenting of that a little bit is a good step, right? If you take something, kind of own up to it. But what's interesting is why he kind of does it. The Lord bless you for, well, he did it because he had heard his mother placed a curse. That was what was interesting. Sorry, I should clarify that. Then it continues, "The Lord bless you for admitting it," his mother replied. He returned the money to her, and she said, "I now dedicate these silver coins to the Lord. In honor of my son, I will have an image carved and an idol cast." Now, this could have been a good story, and it could have ended right at the part where his mother says, "You're forgiven." We let it go, right? We let old times be bygone. We move ahead. That's a great message for us. But that doesn't happen in this story. She forgives him, and then she dedicates the money to God, which that could be good too, right? Saying, okay, I thought this was lost and now it's found. I'm going to give it to God. But that's also not what happens. Instead, she uses that money to cast an idol. An idol is an image of God, and it's very clear that, and this gets tricky a little bit, because yes, we do have images of God. We have images of Jesus, and there are amazing icons, amazing saint images, and those are to center us. But this is an image that they're going to worship as God, not an image that centers us like a cross does. This is one that they're going to actually believe in. So she has an image carved and an idol cast with the money. So when he returned the money to his mother, she took 200 silver coins and gave them to a silversmith who made them into an image and an idol. And as these were placed in Micah's house, Micah set up a shrine for the idol, and he made a sacred epitaph, and that is like kind of like a robe, or the thing that the priest would wear. So he's making himself like have the ability to make his own priesthood. And some household idols. So he made like household idols, ones to protect his home, little magic makers of sorts. And then he installed one of his sons as a personal priest. So this man has not only had an idol made of a God to believe in, he's created the robe of the priest, and now he's decided he's going to declare one of his sons as priest. This is not a God doing this. This is a man. Micah himself is doing this. He's created his own religion. And what we're supposed to hear is this next line on verse 6. In those days, Israel had no king. All the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. Wow. Talk about contemporary, right? Does it feel like sometimes right now people are doing whatever seems right in their own eyes? I think that line really struck with me when I was prepping for this Bible study today. Just what does it mean for us to kind of decide what's right? And are we always asking God what's right? You know, in these great debates that are going on in our world right now about all kinds of really important issues too, right? I do think they're important issues about freedom and all kinds of freedom that we filter into the form of masks and neighborhoods. And how do you live with your neighbor? That's an important question, right? How do you be present to your community? The conversations about racism, conversations about politics, conversations about economics. All of these are very important questions, but often we're not kind of seeking answers from above or even from listening within. We're kind of just going with what we think, right? And so this idea of, in those days, Israel had no king. All the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. We realize that a lot of that isn't new. There's nothing new under the sun, as the Bible tells us in another part, right? We're kind of recycling that message. And so these two chapters, 17 and 18, are to remind us that when we do make up our own stories without consulting God or even consulting friends and family, that we can get led astray. So verse 7, one day a young Levite who had been living in Bethlehem in Judah arrived in that area. He had left Bethlehem in search of another place to live, and as he traveled, he came to the hill country of Ephraim. He happened to stop at Micah's house as he was traveling through. Where are you from? Micah asked him. He replied, I'm a Levite from Bethlehem in Judea, and I'm looking for a place to live. The Levites were the official priest of the temple in Jerusalem. And so this Levite, if he had lived into his lineage, had followed his family's tradition, it would have still been in Israel. Now, some people would criticize him here for maybe going off on his own. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. I think it's important that people define their own stories, but we're going to see that this Levite doesn't do what's right anyways. So Micah says to him, stay with me here, and you can be a father and priest to me. I will give you 10 pieces of silver a year, plus a change of clothes and your food. The Levite agreed to this, and the young man became one like Micah's son. So it isn't like he decided to go on his own path. He is still becoming a priest, but he's becoming a priest for Micah's new religion. So Micah installed the Levite as his personal priest, and he lived in Micah's house. I know the Lord will bless me now, Micah said, because I have a Levite serving as my priest. Not God's priest, my priest. Chapter 18. Now in those days Israel had no king, and the tribe of Dan was trying to find a place where they could settle, and Dan is one of the 12 tribes of Israel. For they had not yet moved into the land assigned to them when the land was divided among the tribes of Israel. So the men of Dan chose from their clans 5 capable warriors from the town of Zorah and Eshtaol to scout out the land for them to settle in. So they sent some scouts out, like we see in other parts of the Bible. When these warriors arrived in the hill country of Ephraim, they came to Micah's house and spent the night there. While at Micah's house, they recognized the young Levite's accent. So they went over and asked him, who brought you here? And what are you doing in this place? Why are you here? He tells them about his agreement with Micah, and that he had been hired as Micah's personal priest. Then they said to him, so they're trusting his guidance, so they say to him, ask God whether or not our journey will be successful. Now, this is interesting to me because it's not very clear from the next couple lines or not if it's God still talking to this priest or if this priest is hearing messages or how that all works. Because the next line, he says, go and priest. The priest replied, for the Lord is watching over your journey. So the 5 men went to the town of Lavish, where they noticed the people living carefree lives like Sidonians. They were peaceful and secure. The people were also wealthy because their land was very fertile, and they lived a great distance from Sidon and had no allies nearby. So they found this amazing, land that anybody would want to live in, this, perfect world. Everything's good, lots of food, lots of happiness, right? They find that land. When the men returned to Zorah and Eshtaol, their relatives asked them, what did you find? The men replied, come on, let's attack them. We have seen the land, and it is very good. What are you waiting for? Don't hesitate to go and take possession of it. When you get there, you will find the people living carefree lives. God has given us spacious and fertile land, lacking in nothing. So they believe God had said to them, wow, that land looked really good. That should be our land. And so they're ready to go take that land from somebody else. So 600 men from the tribe of Dan, armed with weapons of war, sent out from Zorah and Eshtaol. They camped at the place near Judah, which is called Manadan to this day, with the last name Dan. Then they went out there to the hill country of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah. So they are now on their way to that perfect land. Remember, they'd stopped on their way and talked to the priest earlier on their way to this perfect land. And now they're heading back there with their weaponry. The 5 men who had scouted out the land around Laish explained to the others these buildings contain a sacred epitaph, as well as some household idols, a carved image, and a cast idol. What do you think we should do? When the 5 men turned off the road and went over to Micah's house, where the young Levite lived, and greeted him kindly, as the 600 armed warriors from the tribe of Dan stood at the entrance of the gate. So the rest of them are back. Those who had been there originally walked in, though. The 5 scouts entered the shrine and removed the carved image, the sacred epitaph, and the household idols, and the cast idol. Meanwhile, the priest was standing at the gate with the 600 armed warriors. When the priest saw the men carrying all the sacred objects out of Micah's shrine, he said, "Why? What are you doing?" "Be quiet and come with us," they said. "Be a father and priest to all of us. Isn't it better to be a priest to an entire tribe and a clan of Israel than a household of just one man?" The young priest, it says, was quite happy to go with them, so he took along the sacred epitaph, the household idols, and the carved image. So he gave up his place. He didn't even fight at all. He just decided, yeah, I want to go. I want to go with these people, maybe to save his own life, but it's not clear on any of that. It seems he just is ready to go. They turned and started on their way again, placing their children, livestock, and possessions in front of them. When the people from the tribe of Dan were quite a distance from Micah's house, the people who lived near Micah came chasing after them. They were shouting as they caught up with them. The men of Dan turned around and said to Micah, "What's the matter? Why have you called these men together and chased after us like this?" "What do you mean, what's the matter?" Micah replied. "You've taken away all the gods I have made." Ooh, right there, gang. Verse 24. "You have taken away all the gods I have made." Have we made gods? And this might seem like a strange question, but I think we do in some ways, right? Sometimes people talk about money as God, but I think each of us has kind of made our gods. What do we hold in our heart that blocks us from God? What is so much more important in our lives that we barely can see God? Now, some of us, we know what it is right away, right? It might be an addiction that holds you away from God, or it might be an addiction to food, to shopping, to not just drug or alcohol. There are all kinds of addictions, right? Or it could be something that is a priority to you that in your life that you've set above God. And those could be all kinds of things, can't they? It could be we treat our family that way. It could be our job. It could be exercise. It could be TV watching. It could be anything that can be something that will keep you from centering yourself on God. What is your real center? And I know it's hard in this time to center sometimes on God because you're saying, "Where are you, God? Where is my hope?" But by centering yourself on God and really committing to that, you'll find that there is a sense of peace, a sense of assurance. And I know even being at times worried about all this, I do know it's going to be okay. I don't know what that looks like, but by centering myself on God, I know it's in God's hands and not mine. There's a freedom to that. There's a freedom to knowing that we don't have to be in charge. We don't have to make the rules. We don't have to have all the decisions, all the answers. We have to trust that somebody does, and I'd much rather put my trust in God than some of the other options, because this is the same God who has been with us every step of this journey. So when you hear Micah saying the line, "You've taken away all the gods I have made," I think it's important for us all to ask, what are we holding as God over our own, what are we holding as our gods, right? God's plural with an S, small g, right? That's a difference there. And at times it could be even something that seems easy, right? Like book reading. Maybe you're using it as a form of escape, and I think that can be a really healthy thing, but could it end up being an addiction? Or could something that you're doing that is blocking you from connecting with other people be that way? So I think we have to ask ourselves that continually, and at times in life we have gods that we lift up higher than our God, and is that a time that's happening to you now? I think we all do that. I've done that at times before. In college was like getting in the way of a lot of things, right? Which is important for college kids at times to do. But at the same time, you have to ask, is this blocking? And there have been other things, relationships, right? That block. So ask yourself, is there something blocking you from your commitment? So in verse 25, we continue. The man of Dan said, "Watch what you say to Micah. There are short-tempered men around here who might get angry and kill you and your family." So the men of Dan continued on their way. When Micah saw that there were too many of them for him to attack, he turned around and went home. So saved his own gut, saved his own life and his family. Then when Michael's idols and his priests, the men of Dan, came to the town of Laish, where the people were peaceful and secure, they attacked with swords and burned the town to the ground. There was no one to rescue the people, for they lived a great distance from Sidon and had no allies nearby. This happened in the valley named Beth Rob. You know, actually just makes me think of, and I hadn't thought of this until reading it with you now. I kind of wish I had, because I'd have it ready. But it reminds me of the song, and I love the camp song, where you have these troops go and they want this field. Actually, you know what? I think I will post it later and sing it to you. So I'm not going to do that now. But I just tell you, they went to this place thinking it was great land, and there were amazing, peaceful people here. And what did they do? They killed them, and they get rid of them. They burned the town to the ground. So this beautiful town that was supposed to be so wonderful, they just attacked. There was no one to rescue the people. This happened in the valley. Then the people of the tribe of Dan rebuilt the town and lived there. They renamed the town Dan after their ancestor Israel's son, but it had originally become Laish. Then they set up the carved image, and they appointed Jonathan, son of Gerash, son of Moses, as their priest. The family continued as priests for the tribe of Dan into the exile. So Micah's carved image was worshipped by the tribe of Dan as long as the tabernacle of God remained at Shiloh. So they took that image that had been a man's personal god, and then they made it into Big G, God image. It's a weird story, yeah, and there's some awesomely weird stories in our Old Testament, but what I think the message is the same message it was for them, too. You know, this is not a times of trial make us often want to pull away, and it's a reminder that we can't just pull away and make our own decisions, but we've got to really stay focused on what matters, center on our core, and I hope that core for you is God, and if it isn't, and you want to talk about it or want to learn more, please message me, and we can have this conversation one-on-one, and know that I'll be praying for you in all of this, and as I am for all of you. Okay, bye friends.